Can you explain what internet is?
That little mark with the A and then the ring around it.
Can you imagine a world without the internet? A time when information wasn't just a click away? Before the internet, life was a whole different ballgame. We had to rely on books, newspapers and snail mail. From dial-up connections to blazing fast fiber optics, the internet has revolutionized the way we live, work and play. So, was life truly simpler back then? This video is fully packed with all the timeless gems. Life before the internet was a totally different world, especially when it came to how we shopped and interacted with others. Want to buy something? You had to actually get up and go to a store. The only real exceptions were things like the Sears catalogue or dialing into the home shopping network. Even then, you couldn't avoid chatting with a store clerk or a customer service rep to place your order. No matter what, you were interacting with people, whether it was a quick exchange at the register or a full-on phone call to finalize your purchase. Shopping wasn't just about picking what you wanted. It was about the social experience that came with it. Fast forward to today, and shopping has become a solo mission. With a few clicks, everything is at your doorstep without a single conversation. While it's super convenient, you can't help but miss the days when going to the store meant connecting with others. A perfect example of this is Amazon. And if you wanted to watch something new, you actually had to get up and go somewhere. That meant heading to the movie theater or the local video store, where you'd run into people, chat, and maybe even debate which movie to pick. At the theater, you'd meet up with friends, grab some popcorn, and talk about the movie afterward. It wasn't just about the film. It was about hanging out and sharing the experience. Then there was the video store. Remember those? You'd stroll the aisles trying to find the perfect movie, while the store clerk tossed out some fresh recommendations. It felt like a social event, and there was a certain excitement in getting home with your rental, like unwrapping a surprise. You had to make the effort to go out, bump into familiar faces, and enjoy the whole process. Today, with streaming at our fingertips, that sense of connection has faded, but back then, it was all part of the fun. We didn't have social media, so places like the mall became our version of Facebook. People would spend hours just hanging out, catching up with friends, and running into old acquaintances. It was our outer net, where socializing was face-to-face, and you didn't need an app to meet people. Today, with everything just a tap away, you don't have to leave your house to connect with anyone. It had a totally different vibe, especially when it came to music. Forget MP3 players or Spotify. If someone wanted to hear their favorite songs, they turned to the radio. Sure, buying albums, cassettes and CDs was an option, but what if there wasn't enough cash? That's when the tape recorder saved the day. Sitting by the radio waiting for a favorite song to come on and hitting the record at the right moment was an art, but it wasn't always smooth sailing. Sometimes waiting hours or even days were required just to catch that perfect track. And when it finally played, being quick with the record button was a must, or part of the song would be missed. The real challenge? The DJ. Just when it seemed like the perfect recording was happening, that jabbering DJ would start talking over the intro or outro, ruining the flow. It was frustrating, but when everything clicked, it felt like winning the lottery. Those mixtapes were more than just a collection of songs. They were a personalized soundtrack. Despite the struggle, there was something incredibly rewarding about it. Think about how dating used to work before the internet came along. Nowadays, meeting someone special is as simple as swiping right on Tinder or chatting in an AOL room. But back in the day, asking someone out required a whole lot more courage. It wasn't about sending a text or a message. It was about facing the person and waiting for their answer in real time. And let's be honest, getting rejected to your face wasn't exactly fun. The only break from that nerve-wracking experience was the classic grade school note. Do you like me? Yes or no. Even then, the rejection still stung, but at least it wasn't as awkward as hearing it face to face. Now, with a computer screen in the middle, things have gotten a lot easier. Rejection feels less personal, less in your face, and you can always hide behind your phone. But there was something real about those old-school in-person interactions. Sure, it was awkward, but it was also authentic. You could see the other person's face, feel the tension, and know if they were into you or not. No guessing games. These days, dating is quicker, easier, and a lot more anonymous, but life before the internet had its own charm, with that raw human element that's hard to replace. Back in the day, before Google and Wikipedia were around, finding information was a whole different ballgame. If someone wanted to learn something, they had to hit the library or crack open a set of encyclopedias. If you were really ahead of the curve in the 90s, you might have used Encarta, that multimedia encyclopedia that felt super high-tech at the time. But for most of us, it was all about sifting through books, and that could take forever. Trying to find a simple fact could turn into a mini-quest. You'd end up reading more than you bargained for, just to find the one thing you needed. Because it was so much harder to verify stuff, it was easy to get caught up in myths and rumors. Urban legends spread like wildfire, and no one really had the tools to fact-check. People believed what they heard because, well, there was no quick way to prove them wrong. Without the internet at our fingertips, everything felt a bit more mysterious and a lot more gullible. It was a time when stories and myths had a life of their own, and we just had to take them at face value. Life before the internet, it was way more unpredictable, but in some ways that made it all the more interesting. When it came to communication, if someone wanted to talk to someone far away, they had to rely on good old-fashioned letters. Writing them was a process, and then you'd drop them in the mail and just wait, sometimes for days or even weeks, before you got a reply. Patience was key. For real-time chats, landline phones were the way to go. But in many households, these phones were shared, so getting some alone time for a private conversation wasn't always easy. And if the person wasn't home, well, you had to hope they'd listen to the answering machine, which meant waiting for them to call back. No instant texts or DMs back then. Face-to-face communication was the norm. People actually hung out in person. Social gatherings were more frequent, and if you wanted to catch up, you had to meet up in real life. It made relationships feel more personal and intentional. At work, fax machines were the tech of the time. Need to send a document? You'd scan it and send it over the phone line, hoping the machine worked without jamming. It was slower, but it got the job done, just nowhere near as fast or easy as the digital tools we use today. Life before the internet. It was slower, but it definitely made every interaction feel more special and meaningful. Back before the internet took over, people were way more plugged into their local communities. You'd actually spend time with your neighbors, attend local events, and have face-to-face conversations that helped build stronger, more meaningful relationships. Socializing wasn't about scrolling through a feed. It was about getting to know people in real life, and those connections ran deeper. Patience. Oh, we had a lot more of it back then. In a world without instant notifications or the need for immediate replies, we had no choice but to wait. Whether it was waiting for a letter to arrive, a phone call to come through, or for something to be done, we got used to the slow pace. It might sound frustrating now, but it gave us more time to think things through and appreciate the process. And here's the thing. People were way more present. With fewer distractions around, we were able to engage with our environment and the people right in front of us. Conversations weren't interrupted by a buzzing phone, and you weren't constantly thinking about what was happening online. You could just be in the moment, enjoying what you were doing. Life before the internet felt slower, but it allowed us to build better connections, practice more patience, and really soak in the here and now. It's wild to think about, But the internet has completely flipped the game on how people live, work, and play. Remember the days when there wasn't an option to hop online and kill time during a boring office meeting? Yeah, those were the days. Before the World Wide Web, staying busy at work meant actually working. There wasn't the option to scroll through endless cat videos, browse for cars, or dive into a rabbit hole on Facebook. If free time happened, it was filled with paperwork, phone calls, or, gasp, real face-to-face conversations. Sure, technology has made people more productive in some ways, but let's be real, it's also made it so much easier to waste time. Now, a simple glance at a phone can lead to hours lost in social media or online shopping, all while to-do lists grow. It's like a constant battle between getting things done and the pull of the digital world. So while life before the internet was a bit more straightforward, there's no denying how much it's changed people, sometimes for the better, and sometimes, well, not so much. Remember when social media posts were actually pinned to a bulletin board? Back in the day, that was how we shared messages, whether it was at work, school, or church. The funny thing is, even before the internet took over, negativity managed to sneak in. Someone might tear down your post, scribble on it, or even get creative with a few rude doodles. In a way, online negativity today doesn't feel all that different. Then there's mobile gaming. Nowadays, it's all about staring at a screen, lost in a game, but before the internet. Mobile gaming looked a lot more physical. Think dodgeball or horseshoes, where the real game was dodging a flying ball or avoiding getting hit. You had to be quick, or you were looking at a bruise or worse. It's crazy how much things have changed, right? One of the biggest changes we've seen is the decline of books, magazines, and newspapers, as they've all mostly moved to digital formats. But honestly, there's still something magical about cracking open a physical book. The smell of the pages, the sound of turning them, and the way it feels in your hands. Those little things create memories that a screen just can't replace. And let's not forget about game nights. These days, everyone's all about multiplayer games online, but not too long ago, those multiplayer moments were all about face-to-face interaction. Families and friends would gather around a table, whether it was for classic board games like Monopoly or something a little more competitive like Scrabble or Clue. It wasn't just about the games, it was about the laughs, the snacks, and the kind of conversations that only happen when people are in the same room together. It was a time for connection, where people actually had to look at each other, talk about their day, and share some real moments. With the rise of the internet, though, these social hangouts kind of faded away. People became more absorbed in their own digital worlds, playing games alone or with people from across the globe. But lately, there's been a small comeback. More and more people are dusting off their old board games and hosting game nights again, bringing back that sense of face-to-face fun and connection. Here's hoping that this trend keeps growing, because there's something special about those moments that no screen can replace. Now, the internet has totally flipped the world. Everything's digital, our communication, games, even the news. But while it's convenient, it kinda makes you miss those slower, more thoughtful moments. Sure, the internet's made life easier, but life before it had a unique charm that's hard to beat. It's like we traded in something real for something fast and efficient, and sometimes it feels like we lost a little magic along the way. Trolls have completely evolved thanks to the internet. Back in the day, trolls were just those creepy creatures from fairy tales, hiding under bridges or causing trouble in children's stories. These trolls were part of legends, meant to be feared or outsmarted. Fast forward to today, and trolls have taken on a whole new life online. They've traded in their mythical caves for digital spaces, where they spread negativity, stir up drama, and cause chaos at every turn. Whether it's in the comments section of a viral video or in social media threads, These modern-day trolls thrive on upsetting people and creating conflict. They've mastered the art of stirring the pot without ever showing their faces, and they seem to pop up everywhere. The internet may have given trolls a new playground, but unfortunately, it's also made them harder to avoid, making online spaces a bit more challenging to navigate. It wasn't always like this. People used to disagree in person, sure, but they'd do it politely and move on without a hitch. Now, it feels like the anonymity of the internet has unlocked a whole different, darker side of human behavior. The things people say and do online would have been totally unthinkable in the real world back in the day. Instead of constructive conversations, we've got people hiding behind screens, firing off insults, and stirring up drama just for the thrill of it. It's wild how quickly things have changed. What used to be an innocent myth is now a very real, very disruptive force in our digital world. The word selfie is now a regular part of our everyday lingo, all thanks to our trusty cell phones. With just a tap, snapping the perfect shot is a breeze. Click, check, retake. It's that easy. It's hard to even imagine how we managed before cell phones made selfies so simple, right? But rewind a bit, and things were a whole lot more complicated. Want a selfie? You had to get creative. The Polaroid was a popular choice, but you were basically guessing what the shot would look like. More often than not, you'd end up with an awkward angle or half-closed eyes. For group pics, you'd have to rely on a camera with a timer and hope everyone nailed their pose. But the real kicker, you wouldn't know how it turned out until the film was developed. And then there were photo booths. Multiple tries to up your chances of getting a good shot. Oh, and who could forget the classic move of asking a random stranger to snap your photo? No hesitation, no second guessing, just hoping they'd capture the moment just right. It's wild to think how far we've come in how we capture and share memories. Today, selfies are literally a snap. GPS has totally changed the game when it comes to getting where it's needed, but there was a time when MapQuest felt like the ultimate hack. Sit at the computer, punch in a destination, and boom, detailed directions printed out, ready to go. It was a whole new level of convenience. But before MapQuest, paper maps were the go-to. Navigating them required knowing directions or getting stuck trying to figure out which way was north. If all else failed, a stop at a gas station and asking for directions always worked. Those attendants knew exactly how to get back on track. Getting lost wasn't a disaster back then, it was more of an adventure. Figuring things out on the fly, maybe even discovering a cool new route or hidden spot, made it exciting. Sure, it could be frustrating, but there was something thrilling about the unknown. Now, with GPS guiding every move, those surprises have become rare. It's funny how something as simple as getting lost once felt like part of the journey, but now it's all about the turn-by-turn convenience. For a lot of people, life before the internet feels like a whole other era, almost like it happened in a different universe. Younger generations today can't even imagine what it was like without the constant connection to the online world. Just think about it. No instant messaging, no streaming, no endless scrolling through social media. Instead, we were waiting on dial-up connections, flipping through phone books, and actually going to stores instead of shopping online. Everything was a lot slower, and communication was way more face-to-face or over the phone. Some say that the internet has made life so much easier, shopping, banking, staying connected with friends, all at the touch of a button. But then there's the flip side, the pressure to always be available, constantly being flooded with information and feeling like there's no escape. It's got people wondering, is life better now, or did something get lost in the digital shuffle? What do you think? Has the internet made life easier or just more complicated? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. As always, thanks so much for watching.